This gets $1 next Tuesday. What's the rate? What was the level? 3 something? 4.3. Do I hear 4.4? No. Way too big. No. Come on, do I hear 3.8? 3.9? No. 3.5. 3.5? 3. I say 3.2. 3.2. 3.2. 3.3. Right. Okay. Hopefully it's just a pre-shock so we get a really good one before the day's over. Because I have a friend here from far away who wants to experience a good earthquake. I love earthquakes. I just love earthquakes. Anyway. Okay. Tweet. All right, you can imagine what the people on the recording are thinking. Okay, undervalued labor. Okay, we often think that people get a lot of college education. They're much higher than people who just learn on the job, right? And yet, most practical skills that employers want are actually learned on the job. All you learn in college is how to kind of generally be knowledgeable, work hard, get work discipline, be literate. That's very important for office work, and so on. But once you go to work for that lobbyist company, or you're writing manuals for some company, or you're an executive, are you going to remember your geography course? I doubt it. We can only hope. Blue-collar work, women's work is always undervalued. And of course, immigrant work, colored people's work has always been undervalued. And why do women earn 75% of men for the same work? Because women are undervalued. It's that simple. Women must not be as smart. Men always hog the tech jobs because they're more macho. And there's a whole history of this. It's really interesting. And I still have sewing is my favorite. There's not one of you in this room. No, there's like 3 or 4. I asked this once before, right? There's 3 or 4 of you women who can really sew. And even you probably couldn't keep up with the worst sort of Bangladeshi poor woman putting out jeans for Gap, right? I mean, you've got to work like crazy and crazy fast, crazy skilled. But of course, that's unskilled. And if I write apps for for iPhone or something, I'm really skilled. I'm really smart. And I deserve really loads of money. Whereas those women don't deserve anything. That's right. Maybe could be curious. Could be curious. We sit around in rooms. Most executives, all they do. This is particularly true when you're criticizing university administrators. What do? They go to committee meetings. You go, oh, that's really skilled. Go to committee meetings. And that's what most managers do. Is that great? I don't know. Okay. And then locale labor markets are highly localized. Most labor markets are highly localized. We tend to think of Americans moving around all the time. We talk about immigration as if we have this hugely exaggerated view of immigrants. If Pew or these guys do these samples, do these surveys, people think that half of America is immigrants. When it's like 10% at most. Maybe 10%? What is it? Immigrants? Yeah, pure immigrants, not immigrants and their children. The immigrants is less than 10%. All right, but you go take a survey in Georgia today, and they're, oh my God, 50%. It's just like, you surveys how many black people there are in America. White people always say, oh, it's at least 25, 30%. It's 10%. So, anyway, labor markets are almost all local. They're daily commuting areas. You do most of your job searches are done within those commuting areas, and at most across the metropolitan area. Only certain very specialized job categories do actually get recruited nationally across major metropolitan areas. And certain categories that immigrants fill, they move long distance. We'll talk about long distance migration in the next lecture. And people are generally attached to their communities. They don't want to leave. There's lots of evidence about this. So people don't just pull up stakes and move simply because they're out of work. They hang around in Flint, Michigan, or wherever it is. And within those labor markets, you get the formation of wage levels because firms compete, workers compete. You get a kind of average wage for that area. Now, this actually happens across larger regions and even across countries. That the average U.S. wage is higher than the average Guatemalan wage, right? There's a reason for that. It has to do with the ability of people to move, with there being a kind of national labor market. Now, that's true. We'll talk more about that. But right now, I want to emphasize how much of it's local. Geographers have been mapping this stuff for years. And it pretty much maps out. Now it's as far as you can drive. Okay, most workers don't move. This is another labor market map showing kind of local labor markets. Only it's done by county, so you get some of those enormous western counties that kind of distorts it. But a lot of it is very limited. So communities form around labor markets. You settle in, you start to have families, schools, reference points. People stay for generations and it all starts with going to work. And these labor markets can be quite differentiated by the industry, by the place. So, if you go to Walnut Creek, that's an office area. The people who live in Walnut Creek are mostly office workers. Whether it's young ones in apartments or older ones in houses with families, that's who you get. If you go out towards Concord, you're in more the old white working class area, most of it, it's Browning, around refineries and paper mills and all that stuff along the river. If you go to Vallejo, it was Mare Island. And you get a labor force that reflects Mare Island, the Navy, and industry. It's a very working class, blue collar place, Vallejo. Berkeley is a very academic place, right? University towns are notorious because of their very elevated labor market, combining both the students and the people who work there. Silicon Valley is very different than the East Bay. It's got a different labor force. Even San Francisco now, with all the Twitter types, that are Zynga types that are working in San Francisco, you've got the young, hip, social network crowd. And although some of you might migrate over there, Berkeley doesn't quite feel the same way. Oakland, certainly not. Fremont, certainly not. Okay, so there's lots of examples. I could go on and on and on. The West LA feels very different than East LA because they're different types of industries. It's Hollywood and aerospace versus people on the East Side who work in tortilla factories or in metalworking or chemicals or something like that. Okay. Now, industry will search around for labor markets to try and find the right labor force, just like in the Weberian sense, just like we said before. That industry makes this kind of search. I'm going to build a new factory. Yeah, I'm going to make a search to try and find the right labor force for my factory. Where am I going to go? What's the cost of labor? What are the skills? What are the particular skills? What's the work discipline? And it isn't just simply cheapness, because productivity matters and appropriateness matters. People, if you need a lot of creativity, you've got to go to places where you've got those kind of innovative tech workers, say. And if you don't, if you just need really rapid sewing, you go where there's a lot of women who can sew, but the wages are cheap. Okay? So there's a whole calculus both of cost and of the social relations, too. So one of the reasons Silicon Valley always avoided the East Bay like a plague. They went down when they started building electronics down in South Bay. They avoided East Bay workers. They wouldn't even hire, at first they wouldn't even go into Fremont and Hayward because it was full of old blue-collar auto workers and unionized workers. And they did not want unionized workers. So they were just bringing people from outside. We're not going to overlap with that labor market. So even within the same metropolitan area, they set themselves off quite clearly. Now Silicon Valley is so big, it's kind of invading everything in the Bay Area. It used to be quite distinct. However, if you flip this around, you remember we talked about how industry creates places. Well, it creates places by attracting workers, right? And workers move in, but they don't. We talked about saying, well, they move in and they buy things and they settle down. You actually create a labor force that's quite specific to the skills you need, the industry, its discipline, its outlook. People become very attached to the industry. So that, everybody on the east side of Baltimore knew steel mills for decades because of the huge steel mill out there at Sparrows Point. And you didn't go out to Sparrows Point and start chatting about Twitter in those days. Probably not even today, I don't know. But boy, if you're in South Market in San Francisco, that's all anybody talks about. So there's a whole, and people identify with social media. They identify with the old engineering of computer chips in Silicon Valley. You're really enjoying this, you in the gray sweats t-shirt. You're really enjoying this lecture or something. I don't know. You've been smiling through the whole thing. I'm glad. We need more smiles. So that, and if you go, everybody knows you go Hollywood. You got a very weird, it's a different world, right? You got to start unbuttoning your shirt, wearing gold chains, and talking about Lindsay Lohan. Who cares, right? But in LA, everybody talks about Lindsay Lohan, right? Just watch Chelsea Lately. It's all LA gossip, right? And the rest of us kind of peek in there, but we don't really live that. They live it down there, let me tell you. Okay. And of course, Wall Street. What do you do in New York? Talk investment trusts. Yeah. Okay. And when we talk about search, often searching is escaping old labor markets and escaping the kind of workers there, whether they're unionized or whether they simply don't understand your new industry. So when Silicon Valley formed out here in the Bay Area, it was partly to get away from the old electronics in the East Coast. And also to get away from San Francisco. San Francisco workers may have been great longshoremen, but they didn't know squat about high tech. So that developed within a different milieu in a different place. So you get this very different geography created by the development of labor markets. Okay, moving on. The new economics of labor. I don't know how it takes so long. That seems so quick and simple, but I'm yapping on. Okay, the new economy was heralded, this kind of economy of the neoliberal era was heralded by the 1990s called the new economy. It was so popular that we even have a cleaners in Southwest Berkeley called the New Economy Cleaners. I love that place. And everybody with new economy this, high tech that. So we know that with the new technologies, we know we live in a world that's very high tech, very internet. We know we live in a world that is very globalized. We know we live in a world very financialized. But we also, I think working people understand, they live in a world with a very different kind of labor market, a very different kind of employment relation. And this new economy of labor is a very important part of the whole package of the last 25, 30 years, however much you want to measure, how far back. The neoliberal era on the ground. This is really a key part of it, is new kind of labor relations. Not just you can search globally, but actually new kinds of labor relations. And of course, those are very closely tied to what I talked about last time, which is this long-term defeat of labor unions, defeat of labor power in America, and the victory of the upper classes, as David Harvey points out. And there are four big changes I want to talk about. Jobs. I'm sorry if that's too low on the screen. Jobs, people, contracts, and wages. Okay? All right, so let's start with jobs. So the new economics of labor are going to be new kinds of jobs, new kinds of workers, and of course, the film, it's like Gone with the Wind was the film of the 30s or something. Actually, Wizard of Oz was the iconic film of the 30s, right? To escape the Depression, to escape the Dust Bowl. Well, the iconic one of our time is Office Work, obviously. For those, everybody's seen that, right? Space. Office Space. Okay, yes, Office Space. Ooh, well, so you recognize this guy then. Okay, new jobs. The industry has changed. Industry has changed. There's a lot of the old sectors have dried up, and I talked about that last time. Undercutting the old unions, the old kind of workers who are identified, who work in places like Erie, Pennsylvania, or Youngstown, and so on, who had these lives built around steel industry, heavy industries. And those are gone. So you got a vast shift towards new sectors like high tech, like biotech, which we do out here, of course. It's part of the reason California did so well for so long. And also more people working in different parts of the division of labor, doing more design work, engineering work, and so on, to prepare those products that may indeed be produced overseas, but which are designed, and the whole thing is laid out here at Apple, and then it's actually produced by Foxconn in China. Okay, then we have different sectors. Retail has grown a lot. Office work in general has grown a lot. Business services and clerical work. Hotels and restaurants have grown a lot in the U.S. Fast foods, for example. Healthcare has grown a lot. And so we're going to talk more about this in 2 lectures next week, next Thursday, okay? So there's a whole shift in what you do and what industries you're doing in that has discombobulated and reformulated work, the kind of work people do. I mean, as I was showing in this picture, if you work, this is from a fab lab up in Portland. If you work in chip fabrication, you work in spacesuits. And it's, well, guys in old steel mills sometimes work in things that look like spacesuits, but it really wasn't the same, right? So it's very disorienting. And older people have a very hard time, if they're laid off in steel, they don't just move over to high tech and start working in these sectors. It just doesn't happen. There are these huge barriers of habit and training and so on. Okay, so and then occupations have shifted. So there are more tech skills, more managerial jobs, more clerical and paper jobs, or jobs with computers and so on. And generally they go to the younger, more educated workers, those upper level jobs. It's very hard for older workers to get. On the other hand, there's tons of low skill jobs. And actually what's ironic is over the last 20 to 30 years, low skill jobs have grown faster than high skill jobs. Despite what all you hear about, well, folks, if you just got educated, you do better. The biggest kind of growth here is in low skill, low pay jobs, like this woman is doing. Now don't believe that cleaning rooms really fast in a hotel doesn't take skill. It does. And you wouldn't want to do it all day, I assure you. And this is actually a graph of the creation of low wage jobs, service sector jobs, yeah. Yeah, actually in the last 3 years, there haven't been many jobs at all created.
But in the last 3 years specifically, high wage jobs have been created like at a 5% rate that low wage jobs have been created at, and the jobs that have been lost have been much more on the end of high wage jobs than the ones that...
Oh, that's interesting, yeah,
so
okay.
It shows you that the recession has been just basically affecting high wage jobs, and low wage jobs are been affected, but they're just basically still...
Oh, that's interesting, okay. It says high wage jobs have actually taken a bigger hit in this recession. But in any case, I mean, low wage jobs have been growing just as fast. And it's actually the ones in the middle that have been growing slower. So it's low end, high end. It's very bifurcated. Okay, and the people who've taken those jobs are different. Vast numbers of immigrants. Most new jobs in America over the last 20 years have been taken, or 30 years, have been taken by immigrants. And immigrants go to the fast-growing areas. We'll see a map of that next time. Women, hugely entering the workforce. So men have done relatively worse. Male wages, male employment, male unemployment has been worse. Which explains a lot of the resentment amongst especially older white men. And that's been going on for 20, 30 years now. It's really tough on people, You can tell, well, those old white guys. But in fact, they've really suffered. And they've seen themselves made obsolete and then replaced by other people. And then tremendous numbers of young people, much more youth labor, child labor. We don't call it that anymore. It's youth labor than used to have. So the sum total of this is a radical remaking of the working class. The working class in America today is overwhelmingly of color. It's half women, A lot of young people, completely new people than it was 20 years ago. So that really, what has that done to sort of labor power, labor organization? Of course, it makes it very hard to organize, very hard to oppose, and there's, the whole degradation of labor. Once you tackle on color, it becomes even more problematic, right? So, all we talk about is illegals, like they're doing something terrible. Mexicans who come and work here really cheap. Whoa, how terrible of them to come do our dirty jobs cheaply. That's kind of bizarre, right? But it's all that part of the degradation of labor. And the shift over the last 30 years and even beyond was this massive shift to the Sun Belt. And now what are these supposed to show? Remittance. Oh, that's remittances. Okay, that shows you immigrants. This is remittances coming from the coast and the Sun Belt, right, where the jobs have grown mostly, with the exception of Illinois. And that, I don't know what year that is. I can't read it. 2004. This is 2003, and what is it? Damn. Oh, jobs lost. This was jobs lost, I think, in the last recession. Can anybody read? That's 2003, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, it's 2009? Oh, even better. Okay, great. So that's where job losses are. Notice they're pretty well distributed in a lot of these kind of closures. So decline of the industrial heartland that used to be up here, the Rust Belt, the shift to the Sun Belt, although in this recession, the Sun Belt got clobbered too, including California. But the shift west and south has been very clear, and then off to the coast, places like Seattle and Boston still doing okay, but the Midwest not doing so well. And even within cities, you get shifts. So that the work moves out of San Francisco, out of Oakland, and shows up down in Silicon Valley or out in Livermore, and it's new kind of work, new kinds of people, new kinds of places. And all those things are very destabilizing and lead to a reconstitution in place of the working class. The working class will build up in these new places as a new group, and they have new identities and new problems and so on. There's also the new flexibility, which is the end of stable long-term employment, such as old professors like me have, and young PhDs don't. They work part-time, they'll work at 3 different places, commuting around the metropolitan area. CSUs at community colleges is much worse than in the UCs. But over half of all PhDs today work part-time jobs. They're temps, basically. So very unstable work, but this is true whether you're an auto worker or you're a professor. It's pretty general. Partly because employers have outsourced, and these are their favorite methods of getting more unstable short-term employment. They outsource to other firms who are then non-union, who are cheaper, who hire on temporary labor and so on. Or they hire consultants. That's very, very popular. A lot of independent consultants where you get quick high wages, no benefits. You got to fund all your own benefits. You become a small business person, which in some ways sounds better, but in other ways, of course, it's much more volatile and insecure. And there are, of course, temps. The biggest employers today are not Walmart and McDonald's. They're actually the temp agencies. And a lot of firms in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, they hire regular workers through temp agencies all the time. They just realize it's cheaper. And you get your paycheck from the temp agency. And legally, you're a worker of the temp agency, not of Apple or of Intel or other firms, which, of course, makes it very difficult to fight your employer. And then the kind of work you get is often part-time, assignments are more open, less use of seniority, work rules, the kind of stuff that unions installed in the bad old days. And now employers are much freer to form work teams, to be more flexible in their allocation, assignment of workers, and so on. Some of which is to the good, and some of which is just a way of exploiting people more. And indeed, a lot of the flexibility, the so-called flexibility, is actually simply forcing people to do more overtime, to require more performance reviews instead of ladders of career promotion, like the university did to our staff about a decade ago. They'd love to do it to the faculty, but they haven't quite done it yet. So they're always under the gun. You're always under performance review. Somebody's always surveying you and reporting on you, instead of just saying, well, you've been doing a good job, you get a promotion. That was the bad old way. And, of course, the freelancing turns out to not always be a very good work. A lot of it is extremely insecure. It's very popular. Silicon Valley leads the country in the percentage of people working as contractors, as temps, and all the forms of insecure labor. High tech not only led the way in new technology, it led the way in new employment relations. Again, there's a geography to this. And the new industries and the newer places, the hot places. And Steve Jobs may have given you a lot of great new inventions, but he was ferociously anti-union. So I guess he isn't quite an angel, was it? And new cuts. Of course, more low-wage jobs. I really recommend Barbara Ehrenreich's books on how great it is to work in hotels and so on. There's a funny YouTube of the car wash is the New American Sweatshop. In case you think we don't have sweatshops anymore. That was the bad old days. This, by the way, is a chart that shows, this is the 80s. No, this is the, I think this is actually the 90s. This is the 80s, where high-skill work was growing faster than low-skill work. In the 80s, low-end skill work, or in the 90s, excuse me. Yeah, that's right. In the 90s, low-skill work started growing fast, but high-skill work was a little faster. And in the 2000s, low-skill work still fast, and high-skill not at all. That's a pretty telling chart. And then along with this, your new wage contracts, you get the old idea of long-term health benefits and pensions are now out the window. Unless you're in public work, it's very hard in the private sector to get almost any of this anymore. So firms have gone bankrupt and just left their pensioners and their health care completely out to sea. It's gone. You just go back to Social Security. You're paying more premiums, higher premiums for less coverage, and so on. Well, I think we all know from the big debate 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, the American healthcare system is a disaster. And part of it is because a lot of your core workers, those middle-class workers, unionized and so on, that work for auto companies and steel companies and chemical companies and rubber companies, they used to have good packages. And by and large, they either don't or there's very few workers left who do. And that's left many more people uninsured or with really crappy coverage, which is why you have this national healthcare disaster.